At 67 years old, I truly believed I had lived enough to understand love, loyalty, and the quiet rhythm of a long marriage. For 4 decades, I was a wife, a mother, and later a grandmother, standing beside my husband through struggles, victories, and the countless ordinary days that filled the spaces in between. My name is Margaret, though everyone close to me calls me Maggie, and for most of my adult life I was Mrs. Margaret Thompson, wife of Daniel Thompson, a man I met when I was just 27 and fresh out of graduate school. Our story had always seemed like one of those steady, unshakable marriages people pointed to as proof that love could endure. Until a series of text messages arrived that shattered everything I thought I knew. I met Daniel at a community fundraiser back in 1985. I was a young English teacher then, with big dreams of inspiring students through literature, and Daniel was already establishing himself as an accountant at a respected firm in Chicago. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a gentle smile and the kind of eyes that immediately made you feel safe. He was not the flashiest man in the room, but he was kind, genuine, and attentive in a way that left me feeling seen. Within a year, we were married. Within 3, we had our first child, and soon after came 2 more. Our life was full, busy with carpools, soccer games, family vacations, and the endless work of building a home together. As the years rolled on, we experienced the things most couples do. There were arguments about money, disagreements about raising children, and moments where we drifted apart in silence. But we always found our way back. When his firm closed and he decided to start his own practice, I supported him. When I battled breast cancer at 50, he stood by me, driving me to every appointment and holding me through every night of fear. That loyalty, that steadfastness, was the cornerstone of my belief in us. We celebrated our 40th anniversary in a quiet but meaningful way. Our children organized a surprise dinner at a little Italian restaurant we both loved. They raised glasses to us, marveling at how rare it was to see a couple still together after so many years. I remember squeezing Daniel's hand under the table, feeling proud of the life we had built. That night, he kissed my cheek and whispered, 40 years down, forever to go. I smiled because I believed him, but forever ended less than a year later. It started with something so small, I almost laughed at myself for noticing. Daniel, who had always been old-fashioned about technology, suddenly seemed glued to his phone. He had never been much for texting. He often asked me for help when trying to send a message to the kids. Yet now he was quick with replies, fingers tapping with ease I'd never seen before. He carried the phone everywhere, even into the bathroom, and I began to notice him angling the screen away when I walked by. At first, I told myself not to be paranoid. After all, we were in our 60s. What could possibly be going on? I convinced myself it was probably one of our kids needing more help than usual, or maybe a friend from church. But deep down, unease was gnawing at me. One night, after he had fallen asleep on the couch, his phone buzzed on the coffee table. It was late past midnight. Against every instinct that told me to respect his privacy, I picked it up. The screen lit with a message that changed everything. Good night, my love. I can't wait to see you again tomorrow. My heart hammered in my chest as I stared at the words. I scrolled back, my hands trembling. What I found were weeks' worth of messages between Daniel and a woman named Clara. She was younger, not by decades, but by enough. The tone of their exchanges left no room for doubt. They shared jokes, little secrets, plans to meet for coffee, and declarations of affection. I read line after line, each one cutting deeper, until tears blurred the screen. The man I had trusted for 40 years, the man who held my hand through illness and loss, was giving pieces of himself to someone else. When Daniel stirred awake, I was still sitting there, phone in hand, shaking with a mixture of fury and heartbreak. Who is Clara? I asked, my voice breaking. The color drained from his face. He stammered, tried to explain, tried to minimize. She's just a friend. Nothing serious. It didn't mean anything. But I had read the messages. I knew better. The days that followed were a blur of arguments, tears, and silence. He admitted they had met through a professional networking event, that it started innocently but just got out of hand. He swore it hadn't gone beyond coffee and conversation, but the words on that screen told a different story. Even if it hadn't turned physical, the betrayal was already complete. Emotional intimacy with someone outside our marriage was a violation I couldn't reconcile. I tried to process it, tried to imagine forgiving him, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw those words glowing in the darkness, my love. Our children were devastated when I finally told them. They couldn't believe it either. Daniel had always been the reliable father, the rock of our family. Some of them urged me to try counseling, to salvage what remained, but others stood by me when I said I couldn't go on living in a marriage built on lies. Filing for divorce at 67 was something I never imagined. Friends whispered, neighbors speculated, and I felt exposed in ways I hadn't since I was a young woman. Suddenly, the life I thought I knew was gone. I sold our family home, moved into a smaller apartment, and began the painful process of rediscovering who I was outside of being Daniel's wife. The loneliness was crushing at first. Nights stretched endlessly, and I found myself reaching across the bed for a man who wasn't there anymore. Not because he had died, but because he had chosen someone else. The grief was complicated, heavy, and humiliating. But slowly, in the quiet of those empty rooms, I began to rebuild. I started attending book clubs again, something I hadn't done in years. I volunteered at the local library, reading to children. I reconnected with friends I had neglected during my decades of being Mrs. Thompson. And in that process, I found pieces of myself I thought I had lost. I can't say that I don't miss what I thought I had. I do. There are moments when I look at old photographs, family vacations at the lake, Christmas mornings with our children tearing open presents. And I ache for the woman I was back then, the woman who believed love was forever. But I also know now that sometimes forever ends. And when it does, you have to find a new way to live, even if it hurts, even if it feels impossible. At 67, I thought I knew love. I thought I knew loyalty. But Daniel's text messages destroyed not only our marriage, but also the foundation I had built my life on. And yet, here I am, still standing. Wounded, yes. Forever changed, yes. But standing nonetheless. Because love, even when it fails us, does not define us. We define ourselves by how we rise from the ruins. And that is what I am learning to do.